Hey guys, it's Jab. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2012, and I know I haven't posted a video in over half a year. I apologize. I've been cracking away at some stuff. I generally want to post a video when I find that there's something important, hardware-wise, game-wise, and there's actually a few things I want to talk about. But for this video, I think I should give you guys an update on what I've been actually doing and what I'm working towards. Well, I'm working towards building a business, and I would roughly estimate about half a year from actually having a basic version of the business up and running. Now, I'm not going to go into what the business is. If you want a general hint, you can look at my website, and besides what you see visually, understand the functionality there, and you'll get a general idea of what I'm going to be able to offer. So, the two things I've been working on, first is multi-domain support, and the second is a rich text editor. Now, the idea behind multi-domain support is essentially the same exact piece of software, PHP and MySQL, runs every single website that uses the software. Now, we're talking dynamic versus static. Static, an example, before I start transitioning to multi-domain support, like my site name would be a string in the files, and so by adding multi-domain support, I'm pulling that information that is my site and putting it in a place similar to where other sites' information would be stored, and dynamically the site determines the domain name, jabcreations.com, example1.com, example2.com, etc. Pulls that information, pulls the database, and uses that information. All the settings and information, everything you see, the theme, the scripting, the style sheets, everything is pulled from the database that is associated with the domain name. So the database structures are all the same for all the domains. So if you're technical and you understand what I'm talking about, you're impressed, and if you have no clue what I'm talking about, it essentially translates into basically not having to do tons and tons of maintenance. I can just continuously expand and add new features, and people who will use the software, it won't be like WordPress, like, oh, look, another security vulnerability. You have to update the entire website. You're not going to be doing that. You would, if you're a customer of that business, once it's up and running, you will essentially just add content. You will moderate your own site, etc. You get to do the stuff that you would want to do. And the hosting would be covered. There'll be various things that I will be offering. Essentially, it automates a lot of the things that are not desirable when running a website. So, anyway, the other big thing that I've been working on, which took up pretty much at least half, if not slightly more than half of last year, 2011, was the rich text editor. And what a rich text editor, in as plain English as I can explain, is you edit visually what you're doing. So it's kind of like Websites meets Microsoft Word for the very non-technical out there. You basically would select text, click a bold button, and the text becomes bold. Now, what's the difference between what I've built and all the solutions that are out there? What I've built is actually cross-browser consistent. So the code that is generated by when you select text and you click bold or italics or do whatever, the code that's generated by all the other editors is different for every different engine. So I don't know anything about cars, but let's say a Mercury and a Ford are manufactured by the Ford Corporation. So they would have the exact same engines, or essentially, number of pistons, all that, but they're essentially the same engines. So they're not going to make a different engine for a different car. It's just a different brand with a different appeal for whatever reason. All right, but they're essentially the same engines. Well, you still have engines for browsers. Gecko for Firefox, Presto for Opera, Trident for Internet Explorer, WebKit for Chrome and Safari. They're technically forks that are I don't know how to explain it, but those are the engines and the browsers that they essentially are represented. And they generate different code. Different code is not good. So the editor will essentially minimize the amount of issues over time. The issue is you don't see a feature until it's working and it's stable and it's ready. So that is one of the big things that I've been working on. Now I still have to do things like, for example, have it translate between BB code and the XHTML code that's generated. I'll give you an example. Internet Explorer 9 still has massive bugs that just you can't use the rich text editor in Internet Explorer 9. 10, they fixed the bug in Preview 3, and then Preview 4, they just, I can't even use Preview 4. So I don't know what Microsoft's doing, but whatever. So I have to make sure that there's reasonable backwards compatibility, and if you have a preference to use a BB code editor where you use bracket B and bracket to make bold text instead of visually editing it, then you'll still have that option to manually override that. So everyone has their cake and they can eat it too. That's the idea. So that's the concept of dynamic versus static. So just like the branding, I removed the static instances of the branding, where now my information is where everyone else's information is. That makes the branding dynamic. So you have the option to dynamically choose what options you want. Now there are some other options that are going to go live. Version, right now, if you go to my site, it's version 2.9.0. So that went stable last March of last year. So that's almost a year it's been out. So I've been doing a lot of work, really solidifying everything. Version 2.9.1 will be multi-domain support. Version 2.9.2 will introduce the rich text editor. I have some clients who are not very technical, which is fine, because not everyone, that's not everyone's cup of tea, so to speak. So a lot of things I'm trying to do to make sure that you essentially, if you end up using the business, you can either be a power user, you're technical, and you don't run a page file because that's for 286 computer, and you're a manlet man. You want power, and you want your tools to do what you tell them to do. Or you're very not technical, and you need the software to hold your hand and guide you, and you're like, oh, I understand, because it's guided you. So sort of what operating systems should be, but aren't. Because an operating system, if any of operating system was built competently, the first thing it would ask you is, do you know what you're doing? And from that, you could determine how to help a person, essentially. Because some people are admitting, they don't know what they're doing with something. So you help them with what you would know they would want to do. Check their email, go on the internet, etc. Take pictures from their camera, put it on the computer, share it online. Those are things that they would want to have help with. Whereas the person who knows what they're doing, you give them free rein, you let them do what they're doing because they're doing. So that's the general design aspect of it. Now, generally, when we're talking about themes and aesthetics, that is, of course, one of the last things I will be adding. I did add a new theme. It is like a white background. You can go back to the classic theme on my website. I think I will either use the silver theme or a different iteration of it for the business, not entirely sure. But essentially you'll have access to the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And everything is guiding even power users. So for example, everything is still XHTML. So if there's a single XML parsing error, the whole page breaks. Why? Because I've seen an example, one person who spent several days trying to figure out why the web page that they were working on was broken in Safari, but every other browser worked fine. And it turned out they were missing a single quote. So by forcing XHTML, which is extensible, that's what the X stands for, so you can add HTML5 features, no problem. Alright? But by sticking with XHTML, you essentially keep the user from being able to approve of broken code. And so they have to go back and fix the the issue. They are aware of the issue. They now are able to fix the issue. Whereas if they were not aware of it, essentially, then if they have bad habits, such as one of my clients would constantly open a bold element and then close it in a second paragraph. Well, you've closed the paragraph and reopened another one. So obviously that's going to create issues, and browsers render that differently. Yes, there is an HTML5 specification, but we're still talking about older browsers and etc. Not every browsers have implemented those features. Regana and Opera 11.6 implemented that feature, but that feature might not be available in an older version of Firefox, an example. But the basic idea is consistent code, consistent experience. The user is able to just rely on the system, because I've literally seen, in an example, one of my clients up in Orlando blogs for the largest radio station in Brazil, and they have WordPress set up for that. And guess what? Their image uploader was broken for the website for the largest radio host in Brazil. So there you go. Live feature that's broken. So anyway, that's a general gist of it. I can go into lots of other things, but it needs to actually be done. So that's what I've been working on. It takes a lot of effort because I've been doing it all from scratch by myself without anyone else's help. And it needs to work, and it needs to be reliable. It needs to be business class for non-business users first, and then I will be adding essentially more business-oriented features as things progress. So I might be doing some things. I have some things in mind that would involve you guys, my viewers, and I will be getting back to trying to get more into gaming and other things like that. Maybe I'll shoot a second video real quick. So just trying to get something out there for you guys, so you know that I'm still around and I'm still working on stuff. So anyway, I'm going to cut it short here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around soon.